Hello, everybody. My name is Tracy Reed. I have a Juris Doctorate and a legal master's in taxation, and I am here to talk to you tonight about the basics of starting a business in 2022. So I am not sure how many of you have already started your own boutique, and you can go back and look through some of these items and see some steps you might have missed, or if you're just considering opening your own business coming up. These are the most important things for you to consider, to look into, and to think about before you start your own business in 2022. So I've made a couple of notes here. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. But please feel free to post questions. I'm going to do my best to answer them as we go along. But if not, I'll have an open question and answer period at the end. Hello, everybody. Hello, hello. The reason I'm doing this live tonight and not just taping it to YouTube is because I wanted to give everybody a chance to answer some questions, to ask some questions as we go along, in case there is something that I missed, and I'll be happy to add that in the next time we talk. So hello again, everybody. Okay. Before you think about starting a new business, it's not just the name you have to think about. It's not just whether or not you have money or the kind of business you have to do. There are a lot of legal and administrative considerations, right, that you should be looking into before you launch yourself, to make sure that you're using your startup money and your thought process as efficiently as possible. So, before you even think about starting a business, you got to think about the name of your business, right? You need to consider whether your name is web friendly, whether it is consistent across all of the items that you're planning on doing as a business, and it should be unique but not hard to spell or pronounce. So I'm going to give you some funny examples. I know that there is a company out there in the United States that has a very long French name, that in Canada, where they spoke, in the province of Quebec, they spoke French, nobody had any problem with. But in the United States, no one can pronounce it correctly, right? So you've got to consider the name. Maybe you want to do your own personal name. Should you check and see if it's been trademarked? So these are things that your absolute first thoughts about your business name you got to consider. First of all, go check for website availability. Because if you're going to start a business in this day and age, and you're not just going to limit your business to, your neighborhood, like Sally's Dog Walking in Triple Crown, you need to make sure that somebody else isn't using your name in business already. You also want to make sure that it's not a trademark business name. And this is important because 5 years ago in 2017, when we started our jewelry business, I started with a web page called Bluegrass Bling. Bluegrass is the kind of the theme in Kentucky. Kentucky's the bluegrass state, and bling represented jewelry to us. So we registered the name Bluegrass Bling. We made a Facebook page. We got a website. We did all the things we needed to do. And then I went to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and checked to see if anybody had that name. They did not. So I actually trademarked my name because I thought Bluegrass and Bling was common enough that I knew somebody else was going to try to use it. I registered my name, and within the first 3 months of being in business, 4 other people named their business Bluegrass Bling. 4 other people. So I couldn't do anything about it at the time, but if you get your name registered with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and they grant you your trademark, when somebody else tries to use your name in the same business that you're in, you can actually have their business license on, or not their business license, but their business page on Facebook taken down. You can warn them if you want to. You don't have to. But as long as they're trying to sell the same item that you're selling, you can actually have their business page reverted back to you. Same thing with a Twitter handle, with an Instagram handle. If they're using your trademark business name as a handle and they're selling the same product you are, you can have their names reverted back to you. So that's important. So Bluegrass Bling is a protected name, and I can use that as an example because it's mine. I own it, right? So Bluegrass Bling on Twitter. No one else can be Bluegrass Bling on Twitter. No one else can be Bluegrass Bling on Instagram. Nobody else can be Bluegrass Bling on the internet but us. We've had Facebook pages taken down. Now there is one Facebook page that's Bluegrass Bling that's somebody's nail strips. I can't do anything about that because they're not selling jewelry. They're selling nail strips. So that being said, All of that is protected in commerce for people if you want to operate with that name. So if you have the last name McDonald and you want to open a restaurant, can you call it McDonald's? Can you? No, not really. You could call it like Bob McDonald's, but the name McDonald's is a registered trademark, right? Even if it's your name. So that's something to think about if you're going to start your own business and you want to use your name or a common word or common theme in the name of your business. You've got to check and see if it is already being used by somebody else, and if not, if it's trademarked. And if they're in the same business as you are, they actually can protest your trademark if you put your name into trademark at first. So if there was somebody else that was using Bluegrass Bling and I filed my trademark application, they ask you the date that you first used your name in commerce. Like, did you buy a website? Did you register your business on your state Secretary of State's website? When's the first time you used it in business? If they used it in business for the same business before you, they can actually protest your trademark. So just if you are not sure and you don't want to spend the money with a trademark, just try to think of a unique name that's, again, web friendly, consistent across, all of your marketing. Like, you don't want to call it like Sally Joe's Cookies and then call it Sally's Cookies and then call it Joe's Cookies and make all your names different on your different like social media sites and on your marketing. You want it to be consistent, and you want it to be, again, unique enough to spell that it's not hard to spell and not hard to pronounce, because those are important things. Logo design is important. If you want to have a specific logo designed, you can go to a million different websites and get one very inexpensively done, but make sure your branding is consistent, right? If you love mermaids, like I love mermaids, I wanted to have a mermaid in my logo, but it didn't make any sense with jewelry at the time. I couldn't figure out a way to make it make sense. So our logo just ended up being something Caroline designed, which is a horseshoe for the state of Kentucky. Like, it's a horse state, right? So we figured bluegrass would go along with it, and it's got gemstones dotted across it. But those are the kind of things that people don't always think about, and then they choose a business name and they find out somebody else is already using it, and you're like, man, now I've got to start all over. So just from the beginning, go to a website called register.com, or you can even go to GoDaddy. Check your website name. Our website, Bluegrass Bling, was not registered to anybody when we started in business, so I went ahead and purchased it. You can purchase the website immediately. You don't have to actually create a web page and go through the whole web development phase. Just make sure you register your website to you. I think I have 25 or 26 websites I have registered for like 99 cents a year, because I'm not ready to develop them, but I thought the ideas were really good, so I wanted to make sure I reserved the website for my own use later. Sometimes you'll come up with a name that's really great, and then they'll say, yeah, the website's available. You can buy it from the person who originally registered it for $9,000. Like, no, okay. Just find the ones that are basically like $1.99 or $2 that you can register for the year, and you don't have to worry about it. The next thing to consider is that you want to check your state Secretary of State for name availability and registration reservation. Every state has name registration availability. So somebody in Ohio could be Bluegrass Bling, and the Kentucky Secretary of State is going to say that the name's available. Some states will allow the same business to register multiple times. So when I tell you check name availability, it doesn't mean that they're not going to let you do it. It just means that you want to know whether or not your name's being used by anybody else. And if not, you can reserve your name to make sure somebody else doesn't get it ahead of time. Some states only allow one at a time, like Florida only allows one business with that name to be registered with the Secretary of State. Kentucky will allow people to register their name multiple times. So, you guys, it depends on the state that you're in, but it is a really good idea to check the Secretary of State's website. Then to make the check, I didn't tell you about the trademark. Check it at uspto.gov, which is the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office.gov, to see if it's already in use in your industry. You can also reserve and register your business name there. Short of getting a trademark, you can actually register it with the intent to trademark, like the intent to go into business. If it's a really good name and you're sure somebody's going to snap it up, then you might consider that too. But again, these are all things you might want to talk about with your business consulting attorney or your accountant, because some of them have really good checklists about that. And then Web design, that's another thing you want to consider. Make sure that you've got a web name reserved, but then if you're not somebody who's savvy enough to like develop the website yourself and you don't want to use just one of those widgets that they give you for free on the website, consider that you're going to have a startup for web design. Then the second thing is, if you are going to create an actual official business entity at a state, are you going to do it in your state or are you going to do it in another state? Because some states are way more tax friendly than others. I registered 3 or 4 of my businesses in the state of Wyoming. Wyoming is like Nevada, Delaware. They don't charge an entity level tax, so you don't have to pay corporate income tax on your entity in that state, and it's very inexpensive to register them. Some states are really, really expensive to run a business in, like Oregon, for example. It is extremely expensive to have a business entity in Oregon. There are a whole lot of costs associated with registering your business on an annual basis in Oregon. So in Kentucky, it's basically $70 a year, $70 to register, and then $170 a year for your limited liability entity tax. You file $170 a year, and that's what you pay to have a business in the state of Kentucky if it's a pass-through. Now, if you're going to do some big corporation, which most people don't at startup, the cost might be a little more, but it is important to consider what it's going to cost you to have a business entity in your state. And if it's going to be really expensive in your state, you might consider registering it in a different state and just getting a registered agent and paying like the $50 a year it is to have a registered agent so you can have an entity registered in a state that's more tax or fee friendly for you. So if you have your home address in the state where you register to do business, you never need a registered agent. And this is a tricky thing because there are a lot of those websites that say, incorporate here, we'll help you do this, right? And it'll say, we'll be your registered agent for $49 a year. We'll be your registered agent for $89 a year, $169 a year. If you are registering your business in the state where you live, you don't need a registered agent. You are your own registered agent. Registered agent means that they have to have a same state-based physical address, and they will receive your mail for you. That's all that means. So if you live in the state of Kentucky, you don't need a registered agent if you're going to enter your entity in the state of Kentucky. But those websites online like incorporate.com are super tricky because they don't make their money registering your entity. They make their money with their registered agent fees that they automatically apply to your credit card every year. So be careful of that, you guys. That has happened to a couple folks. Another thing. Oh, I think I talked about this later. Okay, I'll wait because I was going to tell you about the other tricky things they try to charge you for that you don't actually have to pay for. So if you have a registered agent, the home address has to be in your state. You can refer to another company if you want to. If you don't want your home address to be where your business is officially registered to do business, you can have a registered agent, but just know you don't have to bear that expense. And then you must, if you do not reside in the state where you are filing your entity, you must have a registered agent in that state. So then you might want to actually ask an attorney in the area if they'll do it for you for a small fee. There's also just registered agency services that you can get that are maybe $49 a year. Like I use Buffalo registered agents for my entity in Wyoming. I think it's $49 a year, which is way cheaper than that incorporate.com site wanted to charge us. So that's another way you can save money. And then if you are going to make, I guess, an official business entity at the state level, you want to choose which agent. I'm stuck on registered agents now. You might want to check and see which entity that you permanently want to use there. Do you want to be a sole proprietor? Do you want to register as a limited liability company? Do you want to register as a partnership if you're going into business as a family? Those are all things you're going to want to talk to your accountant about and see which one is going to give you the most tax benefit. But if you are going to operate with more than one person, you're going to want to have a limited liability company operating agreement. Like those are important things you might want to talk to your attorney about because there's a lot of husbands and wives that go into business together and they don't have an operating agreement. And then what happens if you break up or if somebody passes away and half of that ownership of that business goes to children or to stepchildren? If you're married and had children from a previous marriage, you might suddenly be in business with a stepchild. Like you need a limited liability operating agreement, especially when somebody besides just you is going to run your business in case you might have issues at a later date. This has happened to friends of mine. They suddenly were in business with their very angry stepchildren who really just wanted to buy out and pretty much tanked her business because she was forced to buy them out by law because they sold their half of the business and they just wanted to buy out. So these are all things to think about. And I'm not giving you this list of stuff to scare you. I'm giving you this list of stuff because I want you to think about this stuff before you go into business, right? Because this is not a checklist of worries for like your I go to craft shows 3 times a year kind of business. But if you're really going to open an ongoing, web-based or home-based business, or if you're going to get a brick and mortar, there's so many things to consider before you throw all your money into this stuff, right? Because you don't want to be caught up short at the end of it. You want to be on top of this from the beginning. Okay, another thing that you want to do right off the bat, especially if you want to deal with wholesalers, is you want to get a federal tax ID for your business. It's basically just a social security number for your business entity. And you want that to be separate from your personal social security number because you want to have a way to track your expenses and stuff separately for your taxes. Hello. That was Caroline. She started me. I heard her. FEIN numbers are issued at irs.gov, which is the Internal Revenue Service website, right? They're free to get. Their services online, they're going to charge you to get an FEIN number. And that breaks my heart because if you go to irs.gov, you can get a federal tax ID for absolute free. You have to do it during Internal Revenue Service business hours, which are like 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern time. But don't pay for that, you guys. It upsets me so much when people tell me, well, I paid $165 to get an FEIN. It just hurts my soul because $165 goes a whole long way when you're opening a business, right? Aisha, you said is a tax attorney or an accountant the same thing? No, they are not the same thing. So an accountant, you can have a certified public accountant or just a regular accountant, and an attorney, they're separate professions. Sometimes they overlap, and sometimes you can find a CPA that is also an attorney, but generally speaking, they are separate people. Then you're going to file your organizational paperwork with the state entity, with the state Secretary of State. You're going to make your entity choice. And then whether or not you want to have employees, if you're just going to work for yourself, you probably want to register for a sales and use tax license. It might cost you $10 to get the sales and use tax registration, but that is the unlocking key to getting wholesale prices. Because if you work with most wholesalers, they're going to ask you for your sales and use tax license, because then they don't charge, not only do they not charge you sales tax, they won't give you wholesale pricing if you can't give them a tax exemption certificate. And the tax exemption certificate is what you get when you have a sales and use tax license, meaning you're going to collect end user sales tax from people, so they can give you wholesale prices and not charge you tax. There are so many amazing websites where you'll get wholesale products like Faire, FAIRE.com, which is a really cool wholesaler for small businesses that you won't find on Amazon. Like the providers of products on Faire are not allowed to list on Amazon. Like that's the agreement they make. So many cool small businesses. You've got to have a sales and use tax license. And most states want you to have registered as a business before they'll grant you that license. Terry Franklin, I love you too. Sorry, I get distracted by the questions, but that was so nice. But sales and use tax registration, that's going to be your key to wholesale licenses, you guys. So go ahead and do that. Do it as fast as you can, right? You're going to want to open a business bank account also, because you're going to want to keep your business expenses separate. Every bank is going to request either use your social security number or your FEIN, your federal employer tax ID, to open a business bank account. So I'm telling you, get your FEIN first so you can open a business bank account and use your tax ID. So then you might need a local city, county, a local city or county business license. Every city and every county does not require a business license, and sometimes you can call the city and just ask them. Sometimes you can go to their website and look. I happen to live in an unincorporated part of the county that I live in Boone County in Kentucky. I don't have to have a business license here because I'm not in the city, the quote unquote city limits. I'm in the unincorporated part. But if you live in a city that has within like a city limit and you're not in a rural area like I am, look on your city's website or give them a call and ask them if you're going to operate a business out of your home, do you need a license? Some people only need a license if they're going to have people come on premises. Some states and cities only require a license for certain professions. Like if you're going to be a hairstylist, you need certain licensing. But if you're just going to operate like a web-based business out of your home, you don't need it. But make sure you ask, because people will report you. It's not that states are going to come looking for you. It's that your competitors will rat you out. And I think we all know that we've got those people in our lives, right? That want to rat us out. Okay. Local city or county business license. We did that. Okay. Insurance, especially errors and omissions, premises liability, and inventory insurance. Generally speaking, your homeowner's insurance policy probably has a rider for a certain amount of insurance for a home-based business or for you working from home. Every policy doesn't have it, but generally speaking, they're going to have a small amount of insurance available to you in your homeowner's insurance policy. But what I do not want you to do is assume that you have it. I want you to call your insurance agent with your homeowner's insurance policy, and I want you to ask them if you have a small business rider on your homeowner's insurance or your renter's insurance. And if you do not, tell them you're considering starting a business and ask them for a quote on what it would cost to get a rider for your business. My errors and omissions insurance for my business is actually not with my homeowner's insurance, because I got a much better deal at another company for the line of business that I'm in. So you may not go with your homeowner's insurance, but I don't want you all to think that just because you have renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance that you've got insurance for your business, because they're two separate things. The same goes for your car insurance. If you're operating your car for business purposes and you're in a wreck, y'all, some of your stuff may not be covered by the accident. So you want to make sure that you've got proper coverages for your vehicle, for your home. If you were somebody like us that has a lot of inventory because you're actually doing retail out of your house, y'all just call. Please do me the favor and call. Do you how the process is for citizens from other countries to sell items online to U.S. cities? I do not know that. That is very specific to the place that you're actually going to make final sales. So you're going to have issues with importing. You're going to have potential taxation before you even get it onto the market. That is really beyond the scope of this. So I'm going to tell you you probably want to get a private consultation with an attorney to ask that. And Dawn said, so true. I'm a claims adjuster for auto. So see, I'm not making it up, y'all. It's being confirmed. Let's see. Do a Facebook Live too. Oh, okay. Do a Facebook Lives to sell, and you go to events and set up booths. So Carly, that's the other thing. If you're not in your home and you're going to an event, sometimes you have to buy an insurance policy to even get a booth at certain events, because they want you to have insurance coverage in case you're injured or you cause injury to somebody while you're on premises doing your event. It's really important. So, you can just Google event liability policies, and you can find somebody who will underwrite that for you. So you can either buy a general policy for all of your operations, or you can buy it for specific events. But it is very important that you have that. Don't assume that your car insurance or your homeowner's insurance is going to cover you in case you don't want to leave yourself open to a lawsuit in case you have an emergency, right? Okay, so we talked about trademarking your business name and your logo. We talked about that earlier, but I just want to reiterate again that if you have a really great business name and you think it's something special, you might want to consider trademarking it. It's probably going to cost you a couple $100, but it also will make sure that you stand out in your line of business in case you blow up. You want to set up accounting and bookkeeping system like QuickBooks pretty quickly so that you can keep track of your expenses, because the best part of doing business is making money. The worst part of doing business is keeping track of that money that you spend and bring in to do your taxes. So you guys, just do yourself a favor and start with your bookkeeping software as early as possible. Like QuickBooks is the easiest thing in the world to do. It feeds right into TurboTax if you do TurboTax. If you don't like QuickBooks for some reason, you can Google, accounting software or bookkeeping software and find it for yourself. But I find QuickBooks to be super easy, super simple, and super user-friendly, and has a lot of prompts that you don't have to be a genius or an accountant to understand. So let's see. You need to do QuickBooks. Caroline Reed's like, oops, I need to do QuickBooks. If your rent is income-based, it could be an issue. Ah, that's interesting too. Okay, Kari, that's an interesting point. What about low-income housing if I want to sell stuff on Facebook? I don't know the answer to that, Carly. I think that if you qualify for low-income housing, you have a limit to the amount of money that you're allowed to make. So that is an issue that is totally separate and apart from what we're talking about here tonight, which would be like, like liability for running your business. So that is something that you're going to have to consult a government specialist about, because that is outside of my wheelhouse. I'm sorry. You might want to outsource some of the essential functions like bookkeeping and web design. That's something to consider in your budgeting when you're thinking about opening a business. I am not a web designer. I am not a genius with graphics. I outsourced that. Wink, wink, because my kid did it. Caroline did it for me. But I did outsource it, right? I didn't try to do it myself. But things like bookkeeping, I felt comfortable when I looked through QuickBooks that I could do that myself. If you don't feel comfortable with it, there are companies that'll do bookkeeping for you for as little as $50 a month. If that's something that you know that you're never going to want to deal with yourself and you'd like to pass that on to somebody, it's a cost of doing business. You get to write it off on your taxes, and it's a little bit of comfort, and you know that it's going to be kept up with. So let's see, was the certified housing coordinator Section 8 vouchers are very strict. You would contact your local Section 8 offices. Thank you, Kari. I want to say Kari, but it's probably Carrie. So I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, but thank you very much for that. Griselda said, for an LLC, who do you put as agent? Is an agent. So if you're talking about your registered agent, Griselda, again, this is from what we talked about at the very beginning. If you're going to register your entity as an LLC in the state where you live, you can be your own registered agent. But you cannot form a business entity in a state without having somebody within that state limit that can accept official mail for you from the state. So if you're not going to be there, you need to hire a registered agent. And you can just do that for privacy purposes if you don't want people, contacting you through your home address. But you would put down either yourself if you live there, or a registered agent service that you've hired ahead of time if you don't have either an address within the state yourself, or you don't want that to be listed on your official state registered documentation. Okay, so the next thing you might want to think about is, do you need to hire and pay employees? Because if you need to hire and pay employees, you gotta do payroll. So some people choose to form a business entity where they pay themselves payroll, right? Other people just run their business and take their money out of profits. But if you have to hire a third party, are you going to hire independent contractors so you don't have to take taxes out for them? Are they going to want to be paid a salary where you're going to have to cut a payroll check for them or pay somebody to do that? That is a really tricky thing. Most people that do payroll actually outsource that to a company. So again, there's bookkeeping services and accounting offices that will run payroll for you for a fee. But if you think you're going to be in a business where you need to hire employees, you need to think about that ahead of time and consult somebody about the cost of doing that. So one of many cats said, where would I find someone to do bookkeeping? So you can Google that. You can put in your zip code and say bookkeepers, local bookkeepers. If you have an accountant you've worked with before, you can just call your accounting office. If not, you can always just kind of, nobody really does the yellow pages anymore, but there are people that do that as a service. They do bookkeeping, like remote bookkeeping for you, where you'll just send them electronic stuff and they'll do your books every month. You can find somebody locally, but again, Google is your friend. Yes. QuickBooks also does payroll. They sure do. If you are comfortable enough with QuickBooks to do that yourself, your own bookkeeping, you can also run your own payroll. I really like QuickBooks. I think it's pretty user-friendly, but I'm comfortable with financial stuff. It's kind of in my wheelhouse. There are other people who just absolutely freeze up at the thought of having to do any of that and they want to outsource it. So yeah, Annie, if you had a good experience with QuickBooks, and so did I hope that lets everybody know that, yeah, give it a try, you guys. Give it a try. You can probably do it. Another thing is, if you have very specific blends for things or customized art designs, do you need non-disclosure agreements for vendors? So if you're going to wholesale stuff out, like, for example, we make custom bath bombs. They're our own brand. We're selling them if we sell them to a third party who's going to sell them to the end user, you might want to, if you've come up with special fragrance blends or pieces of art, you might want to consider a non-disclosure agreement for vendors. Okay. again, that's something you want to talk to your attorney about, and it may be something beyond the scope of what you're doing right now, and you may not think that you'll need it, but you might need it in the future. So I want you guys just to consider, do you need a non-disclosure agreement? Do you have something specific to you? Art that you've designed, logos that maybe you're the artist that's designing logos. Have you done a custom fragrance blend? Are you hand making jewelry and you created the designs yourself? For whatever reason, you may need non-disclosure agreements to keep people from taking your very special intellectual property and using it for their own benefit. You need to think about marketing your business and your launch, like a launch of your website. Are you set up for online sales? Do you have social media pages? Those are all things you want to start before you sell your first product. Because the first thing I think of when I think about launching a new product is letting people know, and then happy customers having a place to share it, right? So if I don't have a website, if I don't have a social media page, nobody can write me a good recommendation, and nobody can find me, and they're not going to know how to find my website if I don't have one up. The worst is for you to have the most successful product in the world, everybody want one, and you have no way to find them. So even before your first product is made or launched, you guys set up your social media pages. You don't have to populate them. You don't have to populate your website. Just make sure you've got them, that you've got your name consistent across all your social media, that your pages are set up and ready for you to start making posts. Do you need to explore business partnerships? And I don't mean going into business financially with somebody. I mean finding somebody that does products that are complementary to your products and bringing them in and doing like complementary marketing. So I had a friend named Michelle. Michelle had a clothing boutique called Blue Jay Boutique. So when I was selling jewelry, she was selling clothing. So I would advertise Blue Jay Boutique for she had a lot of mommy and me stuff, so cute, her clothing, and she would say, hey, if you need accessories, go on over to Blue Grace Bling. I'm talking about marketing partners, not necessarily partners specifically in your business. So you might want to do referrals, you might want to do revenue shares. Like if you're somebody like me who is doing attorney business, right? If I have an accountant who refers a client to me, I would probably give them either a flat fee as a referral bonus, or I might give them like a percentage of the work that I do for that other client because they've referred them to me. I got the business benefit of that. You might consider setting up some kind of reciprocal fee agreement between you and other people who are in complementary lines of business. You can run coupons for each other. You can do things like that. Joint ventures, cross promotion. Just a way for you to help other business people in a positive way and grow your business at the same time. Then you need to find a way to drive customers to your business. So you need to consider the cost of things like online ads, print ads, networking opportunities, and again, like referrals from other professionals or other people in complementary businesses. That might mean printing up a stack of coupons and putting it in the store next door and saying, hey, we're brand new next door here at the Cupcake Bakery. Since you're a good customer of Jane's Hair Salon, here's 20% off a cupcake and a cup of coffee. Come over and give us a try, right? Or setting samples up somewhere. If you're somebody who makes bath products, you might take a sample of your handmade bath bombs in little pieces to the hair salon and let them wash their hands in it and see how nice it smells. There's just so many different ways. Let's burn a candle. If you're a candle maker, set a candle up at the candy shop and, you like this buttercream candy? I've got a buttercream candle. It's just, there's so many different ways that you can do complementary marketing, but make sure that you've got an idea about how you're going to get the word about your business, because the worst feeling in the world is to have an amazing product or service and then nobody know about it, right? So, estimating your startup costs. I wanted to give you guys a quick checklist for that. The costs are going to be, of course, totally different if you're going to have a brick and mortar store versus a store out of your own home. But here's some things to estimate that are going to go into your cost of doing business. If you have an online brick and mortar store, you're going to have rent. You're going to have premises liability insurance. You're going to have licenses, permits, registration fees. Then you're going to have marketing, advertising, a website. You might do some market research, right? To see if the service or the product that you're offering has a need, like there's a need for it. Because if there are 6,000 different candle stores in your city and you're going to be 6,001, chances are not great people need candles, but maybe they need mustache wax. So I'm just saying. Do some market research, and there's costs involved in that. You can hire professionals to do it or just do the research on your own. Then there's going to be accounting costs and maybe legal fees or fees for legal advice. Then you might have office or store space. You might have equipment and supplies. You're going to have utilities. Those things might go up. Costs of postage and mailing and packing supplies. And then again, if you're going to hire somebody to help you, you're going to have the costs involved in that too. So I feel like I talked 100 miles an hour, so I am sorry if I talked too fast. The good news is we're going to post this up for replay later, so if you couldn't make notes because I was talking too fast, you can go back and slow it down. So you guys, I don't know if you have any questions, but I am here for it. Oh, Candace says, I used QuickBooks for payroll at my previous jobs. Easy, and YouTube has great tutorials. Phenomenal advice. There are very few things that you cannot find a YouTube tutorial on right now. I am telling you, YouTube is your friend. YouTube is your friend. Does anybody have any questions that I did not answer in my little overview of things to consider before starting a brand new business in 2022? You guys had some great questions as we went along, so anybody? Let's see. Dawn said, is this the same things we would do if we wanted to start a nonprofit to help others? So Dawn, most of this stuff is exactly the same. To start a nonprofit, sometimes you have to register them specially at the state level so that you don't pay income tax on any of the proceeds for things that you would collect as donations before you would be distributing them. Because that's kind of the thing. Like at the end of the year, they want to see your costs versus your intake of cash versus your outlay of cash, your expenses and costs versus the income that you made. So if you're not registered as a not-for-profit showing that you intend to distribute all of your income, you may end up with a tax burden if you don't, accurately register yourself at the state level. So if you, got a bunch of donations on December 31st, but you were going to distribute them on January 2nd, technically on December 31st, you had a whole pile of money sitting there that you might have to account for. So you want to make sure that you are going to somebody who will register your entity specifically for not-for-profit status so you don't run into those tax issues. But most of the other steps are very, very, very similar. I'm typing. Don't go away yet, Jessica. Okay. Oh, thank you, Kagan. So Heather said, I hired a Shopify expert to walk on my website for me. Is that considered hiring an employee? No. It's probably an independent contractor, and actually it's probably a marketing fee or a website development fee. So you should be able to write that off on your taxes. But technically it shouldn't be an employee. No, that should be at worst case scenario, it's an independent contractor, but it's probably just considered a business expense. Yes. Oh, you're welcome, Miss Deborah. Jessica said, so is first IRS for tax ID, then Secretary of State, or vice versa? So what I would say is my very first step for everybody is always the IRS to get your federal tax ID, because you need that for so many things and it's very quick and very easy. So I suggest going to get your federal tax ID first and then doing the rest of the steps. But it isn't going to matter, except that if you register your entity at the state level and they ask for your FEIN, if you're going to have to give them your personal social security number, which I would really recommend you don't do, because it just makes the paperwork confusing. It's not because there's anything wrong with it. It's just you want to be as clear as possible about what's your personal versus what is your new business as soon as you can be. So I just suggest getting your business tax ID first. It's free, it's fast, and it's very helpful for so many things, right? Yes. Let's see. I have been reaching out to Jennifer Zisk and her group, When Entrepreneurs to Work and Brand Your Business. Very excellent information as well, though. Okay, that's cool. I hope I'm not overstepping, but if you draw any sort of social benefits, please know your earning limits before you're... Oh my gosh, Carrie, yes, that's very important. So you're not overstepping at all. This is very important. If you're starting a new business and you have benefits, you are limited in your benefit collection to the amount of income that you can have in a year without having your benefits be affected. So yes, that is excellent advice. Please do reach out and ensure what you need to do to continue your benefits versus making an income, because you don't want to be negatively affected. I had a friend post the other day who was on Social Security. She's on Social Security. She's past retirement age, collects a pension, and got a part-time job because she was bored at home and healthy and wanted to just go out and do something productive, that she made so much money that her entire Social Security check was taxed to the extent that basically her whole Social Security check went to taxes. That's the worst case scenario, and I'm really, really just, I hope that doesn't happen to too many people, but it is a real potential. So if you are on any kind of benefit income, just make sure you check. Yes. Let's see. Jessica said, also I was looking at setting up a booth at this local market, and they say they pay your sales tax for you. I haven't actually talked to anyone yet, but it said that on their website. Do you know how that would work? So if it works like that, we have had some local entities here that did that. We had something that was like an antique mall. They called it an antique mall, but people rented individual booth spaces. Those booth spaces were just populated with their items. They had a very specific vendor sticker on it. You went to a central location and checked out. So if you are taking all items from your booth, if a person who's purchasing from you is taking all items to a central place and they're checking out at the register and they're collecting sales tax on your behalf, they're probably submitting sales tax on your behalf, and then they're giving you a check for your proceeds, that's perfectly above board. And I've seen that happen multiple times. So if that's the scenario, perfectly fine. If, however, you are taking money separately and individually at a booth that you're working actively as a vendor, if you're collecting your own money, you should also be paying your own sales tax. Now, some states have exemptions that if you only do so many live events like that a year, that you don't have to register to collect sales tax. So you just need to understand in your state what the sales tax collection requirements are. But if somebody else is collecting your money, they certainly can submit sales tax on your behalf. That wouldn't be a problem at all. Yes. Let's see. Gosh, okay. Well, I'm not seeing any more business related questions. I'll stay on here for a few more minutes and see if anybody has anything. But if not, I want to give you all the opportunity to also ask me any questions at Read Business Solutions. So that's my actual consulting page where I help people with their business questions. I help people with getting their tax IDs. I help people register their entities at the state level. I can help you with your, tax and business questions. I do taxes. I do all that stuff to help folks if they need it. So if you have any questions that you were not answered here in the video, feel free to drop me a line over at Read Business Solutions on Facebook. And I would be more than happy to help you guys out with that. So let's see, we got a few more questions. And last question. How do I get the confidence to actually do this? Jessica, you talk to other people who are doing it. Join an online group for people who are doing business in the area that you want to create a business in. Ask them what their pitfalls are. Ask them how they set things up. There's all kinds of networking groups. That's the beauty of social media, right? People complain a lot about the problems of social media, but the beauty of social media is that you can find 500 people all across the United States whose favorite thing is making tiny dollhouse furniture, and that's going to be your new business. You can talk to them about doing that. Just find some people who are already doing it who can kind of help you alleviate your fears. I mean, I can answer all your questions about starting a business, but I can't answer your questions about your specific line of business if it isn't the ones that I do, right? So just talk to folks who are already doing it. That's how you get the confidence to actually start. So Lillian says, so we can register in another state, but operate in the state we live. How would taxes work in that case? Would we owe taxes in both states? So Lillian, the answer to that question is maybe. In a state like Nevada, where they don't charge entity level tax, you wouldn't owe any taxes to the state of Nevada for registering an entity there. In a state like Kentucky, they want to know if you're doing business in the state versus outside of the state. So the answer is maybe. So when you're planning this, whether you register in your state, register another state, register multiple states, that's something you need to talk to your tax professional about, your very specific situation, so they can answer those questions for you. I can't give you a very general answer other than to say Maybe. And that's, I know, not the answer you were looking for, but it's good that you're asking the question. You need to find somebody who understands the taxes in your state and in the state where you're considering registering your entity so they can give you a more specific answer to that question. With a business, do you have to charge sales tax? If you are doing a business that is taxable in your state, then the answer is yes. So in my state, providing legal advice is not subject to sales tax, but selling soap is. So if I'm selling soap, I have to charge sales tax to people in my state, but not outside of my state. But when practicing consulting, I don't have to charge sales tax on those services. So it's going to depend on what you're doing and the state law where you're located. Oh, you're welcome. You're very welcome. Oh, you guys are so very kind. Thank you very much. Do you also review business contracts? I do. I do review business contracts. Absolutely. So you guys can drop me a line over at Read Business Solutions, or you can leave a comment when we put this up on YouTube, and I'll try to follow up as fast as I can. But I appreciate you guys spending some time with me tonight. If you're thinking about starting a new business, the best advice I can give you is do it. Right? Do it, because you can't win if you don't try, right? I don't like to live with regrets. So if I find something I feel strongly enough about that I do my research and I think it's a real possibility and I can afford to do it, I'm going to jump. So I hope that you guys do too. So thank you for spending some time with me tonight. We're going to do a few more of these videos in the upcoming weeks about taxes and things like that. Hoping to help everybody who is starting a new business off on the right foot. So I have been Tracy Reed, and I appreciate you spending time with me. If you want to spend some more time with me, come like my business page, Read Business Solutions. Check us out over there and on our YouTube channel for Crack the Crown and Bluegrass Bling, where we'll be posting these up. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.